Okay, to kick off this explainer, I want you to picture two men standing outside in a massive rainstorm. It's a bit of an odd image, but it perfectly explains why simply having a high income doesn't automatically equal true wealth. So imagine the first man is holding this huge oversized bucket, but it's got 100 tiny holes drilled into the bottom. The rain is just pouring in, representing a massive income, but it's pouring out just as fast. By the time the storm passes, he's exhausted, he's stressed, and his bucket is totally empty. Now look at the second man. He's just holding a small cup, but it's made of solid steel, no holes. The rain for him is just a light drizzle, a much lower salary, but he catches every single drop. Soon enough, his cup overflows and he starts filling up barrels. At the end of the storm, the guy with the huge bucket is left begging for water, while the guy with the tiny cup, he's truly wealthy.
So, if we want to figure out how to patch our own financial leaks and actually become that second man with the steel cup, we're going to walk through 6 steps today. We'll cover invisible money, the mindful ledger, pillars and buckets, rewiring your brain, the true wealth ratio, and finally, a practical 7-day challenge you can start immediately.
Let's jump right into part 1, invisible money, and the absolute trap of modern spending.
Look, in our modern world, we've kind of fallen into this trap where we mistakenly think earning more money is a magic cure for our bad habits. Our culture is completely obsessed with income, right? We think the ultimate solution to all our financial stress is just to grind harder, hustle more, and boost that paycheck. But here's the reality. Making a $200,000 income while keeping terrible spending habits is literally just pouring water into that leaking bucket. You don't actually get richer, you just speed up how fast you waste it. Meanwhile, that second guy, making maybe 50 grand a year, is quietly building a fortune simply because he retains what he earns. So the big question is, why is that first guy leaking so much money in the first place?
Well, it comes down to something called frictionless spending. Corporations have spent, no joke, billions of dollars engineering systems to make your money feel invisible. Think about it for a second. How effortless is it to just tap a plastic card, double-click your phone for Apple Pay, or hit that Amazon Buy Now button? You never actually see the money leave your hands. They've deliberately stripped all the friction out of buying because they want you to spend without a single second of hesitation.
And that's incredibly dangerous. See, when you pay with physical cash, your brain registers this psychological phenomenon known as the pain of paying. It actually hurts just a little bit to hand over a crisp $20 bill. But digital cards, they completely numb that pain. You don't feel a thing until the end of the month when you finally look at your bank statement. But honestly, by then, it's just an autopsy. The damage is already done.
Which brings us perfectly to part 2, Kakeibo, the mindful financial ledger. This is the antidote to our modern money trap, and it was actually invented way back in 1904 by Japan's very first female journalist, a woman named Hani Motoko. It's the exact system that historically helped Japanese housewives save up to 35% of pretty modest household incomes.
Now here's the catch. Kakeibo is not some fancy new budgeting app, and it's definitely not an Excel spreadsheet. It is literally a physical notebook and a pen. It is the deliberate act of forcing friction back into your life. When you physically have to sit down and write latte $6.50 with real ink on real paper, your brain processes that transaction in a completely different way. It forces you to pause and ask yourself, wait, was this latte actually worth the effort of writing it down? Am I just moving meaningless numbers on a screen, or am I trading away my actual life energy for this? It takes the invisible and makes it visible again.
And to make this ledger work, you have to completely flip how you do financial math. Most of us do this totally backwards, right? We spend our income, and then we just kind of cross our fingers and hope to save whatever is left over at the end of the month, which, let's be real, is usually zero. The Kakeibo method radically flips that equation. Income minus savings equals spending money. You pay yourself first. If you make $3,000 and your goal is to save $500, you yank that $500 out immediately. Now you have to figure out how to survive on $2,500. This creates this brilliant sort of artificial scarcity, and that is exactly what sparks your financial creativity. All right, let's look at part 3, the 4 pillars and buckets, and how we actually organize all this.
To set up this mindful ledger at the start of every month, Kakeibo has you ask 4 chronological questions. 1. How much money is available? 2. What is my savings goal? 3. What are my fixed expenses? And 4. How can I improve? The genius here is in the simplicity. Once you map this out, you stop checking your bank balance to see if you can afford to buy something. Because honestly, your bank balance is a lie. It's sitting there including your rent money, your electric bill, your savings, all mixed together. Your budget is the only truthful number you have.
So, once you start tracking, every single expense goes into one of 4 buckets. First up is survival. This is your non-negotiable: rent, groceries, and medicine. Second is optional: dining out,
Clothes, random shopping. This is the leaky bucket. This is where the battle is won or lost. Third is culture. Books, courses, museum tickets. And I love this because Kakebo actually highly encourages this bucket, proving that spending money to expand your mind is an investment, not a waste. And finally, the extra bucket, for those unexpected car repairs or a last-minute birthday gift you didn't plan for.
Moving right along to part 4, rewiring your brain for wealth.
Setting a budget is great, but actually rewiring your brain to stick to it, that's the hard part. To conquer that optional bucket where all those pesky leaks happen, the system uses the envelope method. At the start of the month, you withdraw the exact amount you budgeted for fun in physical cash, and you stuff it in an envelope. Or, use a totally separate strict debit card like Revolut or Monzo if you have to. When you go out, you only pull from there. And when the envelope is empty, the fun is over for the month, period. No overdrafts. By creating this absolute physical limit, you learn a visceral, sometimes painful lesson in impulse control. If you blow your whole fun budget in week 1 while you're spending the next 3 weeks watching TV at home, seeing that stack of bills physically get thinner gives you a real, tangible sense of your resources running out.
We also have to fight back against this era of instant gratification. You see it, you click it, it's on your porch tomorrow. To defeat that anxiety-driven dopamine loop, Kakebo introduces a strict 30-day delay for your wants. On day 1, you spot something you want, but you don't buy it. You just write it on a wish list. By day 15, that cooling off period is actively working on your brain. By day 30, you look at the list again. I guarantee you, 90% of the time, the urge is totally gone. You look at the list and think, why in the world did I think I needed a neon glowing toaster? You literally just saved money by doing absolutely nothing. And hey, if you still want it with that exact same intensity on day 30, then go for it. Because at that point, it's a purchase made with true intention, not a random impulse.
This kind of physical discipline fosters a really beautiful Japanese concept called monozukuri. It translates to a deep respect for materials and craftsmanship. Modern consumer culture relies entirely on you being constantly dissatisfied with what you already own, treating everything like it's totally disposable. Monozukuri pushes back against that. It teaches you to find deep satisfaction in maintenance. Just the simple act of polishing your old leather boots or stitching up a torn shirt suddenly becomes this quiet act of rebellion against the modern consumer economy. You become the master of your material world rather than a slave to them all.
To tie all these behavioral changes together, you do a daily checkup. Taking just 3 little minutes every single evening to record your expenses while the memory is still fresh forces you to confront your choices right away. If you dropped $50 on Uber Eats because you had a stressful day at work, you're going to feel the sting of writing that down the very next morning. And look, this isn't about beating yourself up with guilt. It's purely about data collection. It's doing a daily checkup instead of a monthly autopsy. You become a scientist studying your own behavior to build Kaizen, which means continuous improvement. You learn your triggers and you adapt.
So, what does this all build up to? Part 5. The true ratio of wealth.
All of these mechanics, the friction, the envelopes, the 30-day delays, they all culminate in the ultimate philosophical secret that wealthy people understand. True wealth is never, ever about your gross income number. It is entirely about the gap between what you make and what you spend. Going back to our earlier example, Man A makes a fantastic salary of $200,000, but he spends every penny of it. Man B makes a fraction of that at $50,000, but intentionally lives on $30,000. Man B is drastically, undeniably richer because that $20,000 gap means he is actively buying his own freedom.
Without that gap, your wealth is zero. Literally zero. It doesn't matter if you have a luxury SUV in the driveway and a closet full of designer clothes. If you spend everything you earn, you're just running on a consumer treadmill. You are incredibly vulnerable. You are literally one job loss away from absolute destitution. You don't own your life at that point. Your expenses own you.
The true Kakebeo practitioner completely reframes how they think about saving. They don't look at it as deprivation or like, oh, this is money I'm not allowed to touch. No, they view every single dollar saved as hiring a tiny worker. When you save $1,000, you are hiring 1,000 tiny employees whose only job is to invest, grow, and eventually buy you back a day in the future where you simply don't have to work. You are widening that gap to purchase your own future peace of mind.
And that brings us to our final step, Part 6, the 7-Day Kakebo Challenge.
Knowing all this, it's time to step off that treadmill, patch those holes in your bucket, and actually put this philosophy to the test. So here's your mission, the 7-Day Challenge. For the next 7 days, I want you to completely ignore your digital banking apps. Instead, physically write down every single cent you spend on paper.
Use a notebook, use the back of a napkin, it really doesn't matter. Just force yourself to write it down. At the end of the week, tally it up and circle all the wants in red ink. I promise you, you will be shocked at how much invisible money you're just setting on fire. Once you confront those choices, I want you to boldly write this vow at the bottom of the page. I master my money, it does not master me. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to bring some instant awareness to your own leaky bucket, even before you pick up that pen. Think about it really honestly right now. What is the one small, guilty pleasure expense that is quietly draining your wallet every single month? Identify it, own it, and decide today, is it truly worth your life energy?